If you've ever been underestimated or heartbroken, hit that like button right now and subscribe. This story of silent resilience will remind you that your darkest moment is just the beginning of your greatest strength. Let's dive in. The shocking hook, the CEO's cruelest mistake. He slammed the door in her face with the words, "You disgust me." 4 years later, he broke down crying upon seeing the children who looked exactly like him. Aurora Hayes once believed that love could soften even the coldest heart. She had traded her small, peaceful life for the glittering chaos of Jonathan Vance's world. A world of glass towers, black cars, and diamond-lit dinners. He was powerful, magnetic, and untouchable, yet in private, he made her feel like she was the only warmth in his frozen empire. For a while she believed his whispers, the late-night promises that he could not live without her. But slowly his affection faded into absence, and his tenderness became silence. Still, she stayed, praying that the man she loved was only buried beneath stress, not gone forever. Then, one evening, she stood in the same room where their love had once bloomed and told him she was pregnant. She expected surprise or shock, perhaps even joy. Instead, his stare turned cold and sharp as glass. When he turned away, her world collapsed. The door slammed, and with it, her entire future. In that moment, Aurora learned that sometimes the sound of a door closing is not the end. It's the start of your rebirth. The bus rolled into a quiet town before sunrise, its headlights fading into the mist of Maplewood. Ohio, Aurora stepped off with one small suitcase, her heart heavier than her luggage. The night air was cold, sharp, but it smelled of something new, freedom. She had no plan, no home, no one waiting for her. Yet for the first time she didn't feel trapped. Life had stripped her bare, but somewhere deep down she sensed this emptiness was her new beginning. She rented a tiny room above a bakery whose owner asked no questions, just handed her a key with a kind smile. Each morning the smell of freshly baked bread drifted through the floorboards, reminding her that she was still alive. She found work at a local bookstore run by an older woman named Ruth, who saw in Aurora something fragile yet unbroken. Days turned into weeks. The pain didn't fade, but she learned to carry it quietly, like a secret weight she refused to drop. Then one afternoon, at her prenatal appointment, she heard not one heartbeat, but two, twins. Her trembling hand covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Life hadn't taken everything. It had given her double the reason to rise again. That night, under the faint light of a flickering lamp, she whispered to her unborn children, "We'll make it. No matter how hard it gets, we'll make it." It was a promise not just to them, but to the woman she was becoming, stronger, wiser, and ready to rewrite her own story. Winter wrapped Maplewood in white silence when Aurora gave birth. It happened in a blur of pain, fear, and flashing hospital lights. Her body was weak, her spirit trembling. But when she heard the first tiny cries, everything changed. Two perfect little boys, Eli and Ethan. She looked at their faces, their soft curls, and the faint trace of their father's eyes staring back at her. For a moment her chest tightened, not with anger, but with a strange mix of grief and awe. Life had taken everything from her, but had returned something far greater. The first few months were a storm of sleepless nights, endless diapers, and cheap meals stretched to last. Yet Aurora found strength she never knew she had. Ruth became her quiet guardian, often slipping bread and soup into her bag with a wink. The town rallied around her. Kind strangers who didn't know her story but saw the fire in her eyes. Each time she rocked her twins to sleep, she whispered, "You'll never feel unwanted." Not for a second. As they grew, so did she. She took online courses after bedtime, teaching herself digital marketing, determined to build a future from her pain. Slowly, her ideas began to gain traction. She designed small campaigns for local shops, then regional brands. Within 2 years, she had her own small company, humble but hers. Every late night she worked, every moment she pushed through exhaustion. She thought of that slammed door. It was once her ending. Now it had become the reason she kept moving forward. 4 years later, the world finally knew her name. Aurora Hayes was no longer the fragile woman who had left a city in tears. She was the founder of Aurora Digital, one of the fastest-growing marketing firms in the Midwest. Her campaigns had gone viral, her creativity praised by clients she once dreamed of meeting. Yet behind every success was a sleepless night. Every smile carried the memory of the pain that built her. Eli and Ethan were now bright, laughing boys who filled her small home with chaos and light. They were her miracle, her reason to never look back. But life has a strange way of circling back when you least expect it. One crisp autumn morning, Aurora received an email from a major corporate client requesting her firm's services for a rebranding project. The name at the bottom made her heart skip, Vance Enterprises. For a long moment, she simply stared at the screen, memories rushing in like a tide she'd tried to forget. Jonathan Vance. The man who once destroyed her confidence now needed her company's vision to rebuild his own. She could have ignored it. She could have deleted the message and moved on. But something deep inside whispered that this was her moment, not for revenge, but for closure. With steady hands, she accepted the project. Days later, she walked into the sleek glass tower she once called home, dressed not in fear, but in quiet power. The air was thick with irony, and when the elevator doors opened to the top floor, his eyes widened as if seeing a ghost. Except this time, she was the one standing tall. Jonathan froze as Aurora entered the boardroom. The confident woman standing before him looked nothing like the girl he had once humiliated. Her posture radiated strength, her eyes calm but unreadable. She extended her hand politely, her voice steady as she introduced herself to his team. The moment her name left her lips, he felt his throat tighten. Aurora Hayes, the name he had tried to bury under guilt and pride. He watched her command the room with grace, her presentation sharp, her ideas flawless. The same woman he once dismissed as weak now had executives hanging on every word. And she didn't even glance his way. That indifference burned more than any insult ever could. Throughout the meeting, Jonathan's mind kept drifting back to that night. The slammed door, the look on her face, the words he could never take back. Regret weighed heavier than any deal he'd ever lost. When the session ended, he finally found the courage to speak to her privately. "Aurora, you look well," he said quietly. She met his gaze with calm eyes and a faint smile. "I am," she replied simply. There was no anger, no bitterness, only peace. That hurt him the most. As she walked out, he followed her through the glass corridor, desperate to say something that would undo the years. But before he could speak, 2 small boys ran into the lobby, laughing and calling, "Mom!" The sound stopped his breath. He turned toward them, 2 identical faces with eyes the same color as his own. The truth hit him like thunder. His knees weakened as he realized what he was looking at, the children he never knew, the love he had thrown away. Jonathan stood frozen as the two boys clung to Aurora's hands, their laughter echoing through the marble lobby. The sight hit him harder than any failure or loss ever could. His mind blurred as the memories of that night returned. The slammed door, her tears, his cruel silence. Now, standing before him were the living reminders of the life he had thrown away. He saw himself in their faces, the same blue eyes, the same stubborn chin. It felt as though the universe had been waiting for this exact moment to make him face what he had done. Aurora's expression softened slightly when she saw the tremor in his hands, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. Her peace was louder than any revenge. Jonathan's voice cracked as he whispered, "They're mine." Aurora nodded gently. "Yes, they are yours, but they're also mine, and they have grown up with love, not pain." Her words were calm, but they broke him completely. Tears gathered in his eyes as he knelt before the boys, unable to form a single word. They looked at him curiously, unaware of the storm unfolding in his chest. Aurora placed a protective hand on each of their shoulders, her heart aching but proud. She had survived everything he put her through and built a new life from ashes. Jonathan wiped his tears and whispered, "I don't deserve forgiveness." Aurora looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, "You don't need my forgiveness. You just need to live with what you lost." As she turned to leave, the boys' laughter filled the air again. Jonathan stayed on the floor, eyes wet, heart shattered, not by her anger, but by her strength. That day, he finally understood that the door he had slammed years ago had locked him out of the only kind of wealth that ever truly mattered.